Hello, how are you? Is this a halal bakery?
Yes, we're Zabiya Halal Bakery. We're located on 36th Avenue and 28th Street. We've been open for a couple of years. We're called Little
Okay.
Flower.
Where are you
Company.
from?
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan. Okay, that's why.
Yeah.
This is you are owner of this
Yes, I am. Yep.
company. What's the name of this company?
Little Flower Cafe.
Little. Oh, good. Oh, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Okay. So much.
Just milk. You said no sugar, right?
Yes, please, sugar.
Yeah. And this whole milk.
I can grab for you, Wayla. Just regular, whatever. Oh,
Just give me a coffee. Regular.
can you make that too?
এটি হচ্ছে প্রবেশমুখ। এটা গভর্নমেন্ট স্ট্রিটের ভিতরে একটি ছোট্ট একটি মিউজিয়াম। আমরা এখন ভিতরে ঢুকবো। প্রবেশমুখেই নিরাপত্তার জন্য কয়েকজন কর্মী বাহিরে, আর ছোটবেলার সেই গেমস, ভিডিও গেমস। আমি এখন হাউ ইজ ডুইং? আই এম গুড। প্রবেশ করছি মিউজিয়ামের ভিতরে।
All right. So I'm actually surprised we're not starting too late, given all the late Korean people time, all that stuff, and yeah. But I just wanted to welcome you all here, and I'll be very brief because we're going to be popping in and out throughout the whole day. I'm very excited for our amazing panels that we have set for today. We have a lot of powerhouse folks from the community who are here to share their experiences, their lived experiences, and talking about some of the challenges as well as the successes. And I personally, just on a personal note, for a lot of you guys know that I used to work at an organization called KCS, Korean Community Services, for 12 years. And it was actually through that work that I did on the ground that I really saw so clearly how important it is to have folks, whether it's in government, the private sector, wherever field that we're in, to have that representation and have that voice to be able to elevate a lot of our concerns, our issues. And so now that we have 7 Asian Americans on the city council, which has never happened before, I think it really shows how, we can bring that lens, right, of the Asian voice to legislation, to the budget, for all these other things that are so important in the city. And it's such an incredible experience to be able to have that opportunity to do that. And, we're just so excited to be here today. And as we go through the day, I really want us to think through, when we're listening to the panels, I hope it gets you all to think, okay, how does this apply to me? What can we do collectively as an Asian community to raise our voices and to work together across different sectors and fields? And so I really hope that today just listen, take it all in. I know that a lot of us in the audience will have a lot of shared experiences as our panelists, and so hopefully it resonates. And then hopefully it'll cause us to have a call to action, sort of. So with that, I will hand it over to Councilmember Shekhar Krishnan.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all so much for coming. I'm Shekhar Krishnan, council member from Jackson Heights in Elmhurst, Queens, and proudly the first Indian American ever elected to our city council. And I want to shout out one of the first Korean Americans ever elected to the council in New York City, in council member Linda Lee. There's also being modest by saying worked at Korean Community Services. She actually led it, an incredible organization at an incredible rate, serving our Korean and Asian American communities before joining the city council. But we're so grateful to you all for coming out today. Our vision for this event really started from conversations that we've had, feeling very passionate and personal, obviously, about these issues, whether it was through Linda's work prior as a nonprofit leader, as my work as a civil rights lawyer and the co-founder of a legal services organization serving our communities. For us both in our roles in the city council, it's not enough for us to be the first of any kind. Our hope, and I can speak for all of our Asian Americans in the council, is that we are the first of many, many more to come, and that we are building on generations of work and leadership before us that has enabled us to be in this position. I was speaking to an auntie the other day on the street who was talking to me about how proud she was to see me on the city council, and I said, this is actually a result of your sacrifice, your work that has paved the way for all of us. And I know you feel the same way too, Councilmember Lee. And for us, it's thinking about, well, what it's taken for us as communities to get to this point, to have representation, the glass ceilings shattered, the bamboo ceilings shattered, but not only that, how much more there is to go. Not just in government, not just in politics, but in journalism, in the corporate field, in corporate law, in arts and culture, in every sector in which we as Asian Americans are very much still underrepresented. And that's exactly why we named today's conference the first of a yearly summit that we'll have, Ascent, because we are on the rise. Our power is growing. Our voices are stronger and stronger, and we are demanding that we will not be invisibilized anymore, that we will not be unseen, that we will make sure that we receive the resources we need for our communities in our languages, accessible to our cultures. But that requires really making sure that everyone knows who our communities are, the work that we've done to get to this point, and how much more there is to do. And so it's our hope that today's summit, through the different discussions, through you all being here and speaking with each other across sectors, across fields, we're simply humbled and honored that you all took the time to join us today. So with that in mind, I want to thank you all so much on behalf of Councilmember Lee and I both for being here for the first ever citywide Asian American Summit on these issues. And we're looking forward to a great discussion. So thank you all so much.
And we're not a monolith.
Sorry. Yes, we should, first of all, we have a few more speakers to come up to introduce everyone. But first, I want to thank, this event wouldn't be possible without incredible sponsors who made sure it happened. Of course, our beloved Asian American Federation, thank you so much for your support always, for supporting our communities and all that we do. To Delta Airlines, thank you so much for your support for our communities. And of course, to the law firm Weil, Gotshal & Manges, thank you always for your support and for understanding how to bridge together both the legal private sector with pro bono public service too. So thank you all so much. And we're going to hear more from in a bit, but quite literally, this event would not be possible today without the incredible, beautiful cultural institution we have here in the Museum of the Moving Image. We owe them a big debt of gratitude.
Yes. And right now I wanted to call up another one of our amazing special colleagues whose district we are actually in right now. And my fellow, how do I say, sister from another mister? Can I say that? So I always have this joke because Julie Wan and I are the first Korean Americans elected, and she's all the way in Western Queens.
Because we had no, and our forefathers have made, as they made their trek here to America over 100 years ago, so that we can ascend in all of these different industries, and even in the government, to have the first Indian American elected, to have the first 2 Korean American women elected. That is incredible, incredible power, and a testament of the legacy that our parents leave behind, that our grandparents leave behind. Because when I think back to my grandmother, when I said goodbye to her at the airport, moving to America, she was bawling, and she was like, why do you want to go there? Is it because they have flying cars? Like, no, Grandma, that's just only in the movies. But for us to let go of so much, it's really, really something that's worthwhile. Because my dad always tells me, when he talks to his friends in Korea, his friends go, Yuguna, that's his name. So they say, the best decision you ever made was going to America. We're sorry we discouraged you at first, saying that it's gonna be so tough. You're gonna have to start all over. You'll have to lose your title. You're not gonna be a businessman anymore. And even to my mom, who was a culinary professor, gave everything up so that she could be a nail salon artist, so that we can have a future. And for her, one of my fondest memories is when we first moved to America, we would go to a grocery store, and then she would always see the pizzas, and we would always be like, Mama, pizza 사주세요, which means like, buy us pizza, it's so delicious. But because it was out of our budget, she would say, okay, let's make it at home together. And she would take us and we would get one of those Pillsbury Doughboy can things, but she didn't know what it was. She just knew that it was a pizza wrapping on it, and she's like, can you translate this? I go, 뭐라고 써 있어? And my brother and I would read it to her and we would translate. And it would be fun for me because since she still missed cooking, we would cook together. I would read the boxes and translate for her. But now thinking back, I would also translate all the medical notices. I would translate any legal notices that came to our house. I would translate even my own parent-teacher conferences. If somebody that was my teacher said something negative, I would translate it in a very positive way. So all of these layers, as children growing up as with parents who are immigrants, being a child translator was a vital role, but it also meant that we had to mature very quickly, and sometimes translating things that wasn't appropriate for our childhood. And that's why within my first year in office, my top priority was language access. And I was able to partner with AAF to get the first language access co-op created for $5 million. And we still have long ways to go, but we're continuing to fight so that for the future, we're creating a community that accepts you even if English isn't your first language, but also making sure that we're creating infrastructure for all children growing up in America, especially in New York City, to ascent to all different industries that they pursue, not just doctors and lawyers, even though those are good, but in every industry, in the government and in media and so much more. So I just thank my colleagues for making this happen. I also want to give a shout out to Assemblymember Grace Lee and the Assembly member for this district, Assemblymember Zora Mamdani, who also
beyond what we see in the policy and in the outside world. So I'm looking forward to these conversations. I now want to call up someone who's been a good friend and a partner of ours, who has taken over MOMI by storm when he's come in, very conscious of the way in which to make sure such a beloved cultural institution in Queens has its doors open to every single community, including our Asian American communities, immigrant communities that may not otherwise know or feel like they have access to film, to culture, to a museum like this. Someone who really understands how to bring arts and culture to our communities. And that's exactly why, for a citywide event like this, we partnered with such a beloved institution here in Queens. So the relatively new, but it's been a while already, Executive Director of MOMI, Aziz Aisham. Come say a few words.
Thanks everybody for being here. And welcome to the Museum of the Moving Image. It's really just like fills my heart to see this experience, to experience this today, to see everyone here. Very, very happy. My job is very simple today. I get to thank you all for being here. I get to thank our sponsors. But first of all, I want to thank our city council because they have been unapologetically, unabashedly pro-arts and culture from the jump. From the moment that I arrived at this institution, it was very clear that while there were headwinds against us, especially here where we were in the middle of the SAG strikes and there were budget cuts that were affecting all of the cultural institutions in the city, Julie, Shaker, Linda, Speaker Adams have made it very, very clear that arts and culture was an important, essential part of this city. And we really, literally would not be here without the support of the city council. So big up to you guys. Thanks everyone. And you all should know that your city council, the most diverse city council that I've ever seen, I don't think this is a coincidence, has had the back of the arts institutions from day one. So keep doing that, please. And then, the other people to thank obviously are the sponsors who made it possible for us to be here today. Delta Airlines, Luna Seltzer, Asian American Federation, Wild Gulchall and Manges. Thank you guys, we appreciate you. And for all the panelists, neighbors, friends, community members, we are here because you are here. So please come back, the door is open. Starting 2 weeks ago, the ground floor of MOMI is free and open every weekend. Free community programming in the Fox Amphitheater every Saturday. whether that's job force development, or I think next week we're doing a mushroom tour with electron scanning microscopes so that you can meet the tiny little fungal neighbors of Queens, New York. And thanks for sharing your stories with us today. My story, like many of yours, started with a grandparent who arrived in Queens. This feels like a real homecoming to me, and hopefully to several of you. And come back soon. Come back often. Thanks.
Journalism and media across API leaders in the corporate world. Mitra is the co-founder and CEO of URL Media, a network of Black and Brown community news outlets and sharing content and revenue. Mitra is also the co-founder and publisher of Epicenter NYC, a newsletter to help New Yorkers get through the pandemic, and she speaks 7 different languages. That's right. And on top of that, Mitra is a sister, a close friend, someone who both Councilmember Lee and I turn to often for advice, who was instrumental in helping us think through today as well. Without further ado, I'll bring up Mitra to the stage.
Thank you, Shaker. Thank you, everybody, for setting us up so well. I am your moderator for the morning, which means you're going to hear from me in moderation. But I am really, really looking forward to today's programming. To kick us off, you know, I really can't think of a better kind of pair of folks to set the stage for so much of what, you know, the companies that Shaker just mentioned that I founded in the pandemic, Epicenter and URL Media. You know, we really believe in the marriage of wealth creation and social justice. And much of what we are talking about for the ascent of our community is impossible without the partnership of New York City's business community. And I just want to begin by introducing Alex Chi, and I'd like to invite him to come up on stage. He's the co-CEO of, hold on, let me get this right, because I'm a journalist, so I need to make sure that I'm not, all right. Alex Chi was appointed the co-chief executive officer and co-president of Goldman Sachs Asset Management in March of 2022. So I invite you to the stage. Look at him, come straight on. Love that, love that. All right, and I would like to invite Noreen Hassan, who was appointed the president of UBS Americas and CEO of UBS Americas Holding in also 2022, pivotal year. Please join us on stage. And their bios, you can read. I'm not gonna, you know, you could like Google all of us all day long and not stop, I promise, because I tried to do that this morning. So what I really wanted to do though, is kind of draw some inspiration from our city council members who set us up with our backstories. Alex is in the predicament of being seated between 2 South Asian women. We are, how do you feel?
It's my pleasure.
Oh, good. That's the right answer. Right answer. Right answer. Okay, so we're gonna, Alex.
Oh boy.
I want you to tell me that's not you. Tell me about the person in this photo.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me. And by the way, Linda and my sister Sue are very close friends. So when Linda called and said, "Hey, can you do this?" I said, "When and where?" So it's a pleasure to be here. So, wow, that's really embarrassing. So I'm a born and bred New Yorker, and my origin story is that my parents immigrated from South Korea in June of 1972, and my mother was already pregnant with me, and they moved to Flatbush in Brooklyn. They came with no jobs, with $200 each. And my father was an electrical engineer from Korea, and my mother had gotten her master's in piano from Juilliard. And they were both Bible study teachers at a church in Korea. They got married, and as soon as my father got out of the army, they came here. And so moved to Flatbush, and then when I was born, moved to the housing project in East New York called Starrett City. and that's where I lived for the first 12 years of my life. And it was pretty rough, to be honest. You know, there were many Koreans in the neighborhood. It was a really rough neighborhood. I grew up really quickly. And when people came up to me, one of the first questions were like, "Hey, so are you Chinese?" "No." "Are you Japanese?" "No." "Then what are you?" "I'm Korean." "What's that?" And the only people who knew what Korean was like, "Oh, from that show MASH." And then the next question was, "Do you know Kung Fu?" And they want to start fighting me to see if I knew it. And so it was really rough, but I grew up really quickly. And part of what that taught me was just the power of grit. So lived there for 12 years, and then my father, so the story there was, my father couldn't really speak English very well, but my mother could because she had attended school here. And took my father around to look for just places, any kind of job shops that would hire him. And got turned down over and over until finally found a store, I think it was in Bensonhurst. And there was a really nice Hasidic Jewish man who had a store that would fix TVs and radios. And said to my mother, if he can fix this TV, then he's got a job. So he got all excited. And then the man brought out this TV, except my father had never seen a color picture tube before. But all the schematic diagrams were the same. So he fixed it, then he got a job. And he worked there for a long time. And then on the weekends, he would take the subway into Times Square to one of those electronic shops. And the owner would give him just a bag full of broken radios. He would take it home.
Rice and yogurt in order to save money. I think they got a vegetable on Fridays, they would say. But my dad got a job at IBM up in East Fishkill, New York, which was, I think, the haven of community of the South Asians of the early 70s. And my mom got a job, well, and then they had enough money that they could bring my sister back. So my sister was born in 1966, but they left her with my grandparents until they could afford to bring her back. And so they brought her when she was 5, and they said, okay, well, now we have enough money to have a child. So there I arrived. My mom supplemented the income by working at Sears. And so the way we got family photos done was at Sears Portrait Studio. If anybody, Sears Portrait Studio. So this is Sears Portrait Studio circa, 1975. And all my clothes growing up were Winnie the Pooh. I had a lot of Winnie the Pooh. Which became a problem. My dad got transferred when I was in junior high. Actually, my parents first sent me to live in India for a year and a half when I was 12 because they were worried I was becoming too American. And that's a whole different story. I only lasted a year and a half. I was too American. And it really was true. And when we came back, we lived in Tucson, Arizona. And so me and all my Winnie the Pooh clothes now show up, and my dad decided he had enough money, he was going to move to the nice part of Tucson. So we arrive in Tucson and pull up in the Chevy Impala, whatever, and the neighbors come up and ask us, "Oh, are you the cleaners? Who's moving into this house?" So that was lovely. And we're like, "No, we're not the cleaners." And then I went to school and got mocked for the Winnie the Pooh clothes, and had to beg my mom, could I please go buy new clothes that don't have a logo on it? And but people were like, Indians, similar to your story. Somebody said to me on the bus, "Oh, so you're Indian? Does that mean you live in a teepee?" I'm like, "Oh, not that kind of Indian." So it was definitely a cultural moment in Tucson, which hadn't seen a lot of non-white people or non-white, non-Hispanic people. In Tucson, every store I went into, people would start speaking to me in Spanish. And I'm like, "I no habla, I can't help you." So that's my sister.
Yo puedo hablar en español. It's one of the 7 languages, just in case we need to go there, because Shaker and Linda know this. What is the ascent of Asian America without Asian Latino solidarity? But that's not what we're talking about right now. Okay, we're going to move forward to this stage of your life. Yeah, Alex. Is this at MIT?
Yes.
Okay.
Graduation at MIT.
All right, so tell us a little bit about these years. It seems like you're starting to ascend from where your family was in the first phase of what you were describing. I also wondered, we often get to bios in this way that are like ladders, right? But the reality is that a lot of stuff happens that is not going to surface in your Google search. So I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the forming of this phase and how it led to where you ended up.
Wow, so that was 30 years ago. In fact, right after this, I'm getting on a plane to go to Boston to go to my 30th college reunion at MIT. But look, when I graduated, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I was fortunate to get a job at Goldman, and in fact, it wasn't in finance. I was a software engineer. So my first job at Goldman was actually as a coder. So I was just fortunate to do that. And frankly, when I graduated, all I kept thinking about was, I don't want to be hungry. I want to make money. I was sick and tired of being just poor. And I wanted to be able to make money and take care of my parents and my sister. And so the best job that I can get at the time, because I studied engineering at MIT, was to work on Wall Street. At the time, not even really understanding what Wall Street did, other than just watching the movie Wall Street. And I didn't believe that greed was good, right? So that's that picture, and I was very excited, and MIT was not easy. It was easier for many others. For me, I had to work really, really hard, and it's a miracle that I graduated. But when I joined Goldman Sachs, I had no idea what my path was going to be.
And just to be clear, the finance interest was the desire for stability.
Or just to work at Goldman Sachs at the time.
Got it.
Even in an IT job, which is a great path. I just wanted more financial stability.
Got it.
I mean, my dream was to actually be in a rock band. I want, for those of you who know, I have a musical background as well, and I wanted to be the front man in a rock band. But my tiger Asian mother said NFW to that.
Noreen, tell us about this.
So I am a year older than Alex. My 30th was last year. So this is my graduation from Princeton. When I graduated from high school in Arizona, I hated Arizona. I'm like, this place is so brown. Please get me somewhere green. My high school counselor told me there was no way I was going to get into Princeton or Harvard, because really that was for Laura Schaefer. And I was really proud when I proved her wrong. Laura Schaefer was a favorite of the college counselors. So I was like, nope, I'm gonna do it. And I got in. You know, as an Indian woman, I came from a conservative Indian family. Every woman in my family had an arranged marriage. Every woman in my family, you know, my sister worked, but she's a very successful doctor, but she had an arranged marriage at 22, and that was the thing. That's what you were supposed to do. And then, you know, you were supposed to have a kid 2 years later. But I looked at my mom, and I would say my dad, and I love my dad, but he did not treat my mom very well. Kind of in this typical South Asian, some of the stereotypes held true. But on my mom, she walked, the summer after this picture was taken, she said my job was done, and she walked out, which was really impressive for somebody with only a high school education, and, you know, was a bank teller, I think, at that time. But my big thing was, I am not going to be dependent on a man. I am going to make my own money. I'm going to, all the aunties were like,
They both were there. Alex did not bring his family.
You look
Alex,
bad.
shame on you.
can we send this to a sister?
But Noreen, let's stay with you. What are we looking at here? Because this is more recent, I presume.
This was February of this year. It was the Friday before the long weekend, and it coincidentally happened that my father and my sister were both visiting, and my son had the day off school, and I think 2 weeks earlier, the stock exchange called and said, hey, do you guys want to ring the bell in conjunction with some of the nonprofits we support the Friday before the long weekend. So it was a great opportunity for my immigrant dad, we used to go through the stock listings, to be able to show him the floor and ring the bell, and to actually, have my son see me in that kind of a, position, and to understand what the stock exchange is. It was just a great coincidental opportunity that it worked out for everybody to be there.
And Doreen,
Which is on the New York Stock Exchange. So that picture is of me ringing the bell. There's another picture along with our team, just celebrating our 10th anniversary of being a publicly traded company. You know, what's funny is when I was up there, I was introduced as the co-CEO of Goldman Sachs Business Development Corporation, and everyone's like, wait, I thought the CEO of Goldman Sachs was a tall, you know, bald Jewish DJ guy. No, that's different. But
you do DJ.
I do. It's required. But so that's what that is. And I felt very grateful and blessed to be up there. And the thought did cross my mind, of course, that while I was standing up there, that I felt very proud as an Asian American and as a CEO to be up there to really represent for all of us.
I was at the stock exchange.
Important to work hard and do a great job, but then once you have the opportunity, really capitalize on it and do everything you can to make the most of it and speak up and let people hear your voice. It's not just about just keeping your head down and working hard. You have to get out there in your life. I could not have gotten to where I am without sponsors and mentors. So go find those people who give you some good advice and then tell you what you
এটা কল্পনার বাইরে যে এত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ একটি ঘটনা আমাদের সামনে ঘটল। এই আয়োজন খুবই জরুরি একটা সভ্যতাকে অগ্রসর করার জন্য, একটা তার পজিশন থেকে আরেকটা পজিশনে উত্তরণের জন্য। এশিয়ান আমেরিকান যে লিডারশিপ আজকে আমরা দেখলাম, পৃথিবীর সবচাইতে, বিশেষ করে আমেরিকায় সবচাইতে বড় প্রতিষ্ঠিত দুটি প্রতিষ্ঠানের একজন সিইও আর একজন সিইও আমাদের সামনে, দুজনই খুবই ইয়াং। আমি সহ আমরা সব দর্শক শ্রোতারাই খুব অবাক এবং বিস্ময়ে অভিভূত ছিলাম। আমরা দেখছি তাদের লিডারশিপ জন্য এই পথ কত বেশি বিপদ সংকট ছিল, তারা কীভাবে কষ্ট করে উঠে এসেছে। সুতরাং এখানে আত্মত্যাগ, ধৈর্য, সংযম, সুনির্দিষ্ট লক্ষ্য এবং আপোষহীনতা, এটা যে খুবই জরুরি এটা লিডারশিপের জন্যে, এটা আমরা এদের জীবনের ঘটনার থেকেই প্রমাণ দেখলাম। আর পাশাপাশি এই জাতীয় অনুষ্ঠানের গুরুত্বটা হচ্ছে যখন এই জাতীয় পরিস্থিতি একটা সমাজ যখন জানে, এই সমাজের যারা আগ্রহী, যেমন আমাদের বংশধররা, যারা ছোট চিলড্রেন, আজকে যে মাত্র স্কুলের ছাত্র অথবা যে শিশু, তাদের জন্য এই ডকুমেন্টগুলো খুবই দরকারি। সেই ক্ষেত্রে মিডিয়ার গুরুত্ব আজকে আমরা হাড়ে হাড়ে বুঝতে পারছি যে এটি কত বেশি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ এবং কত বেশি অবদান রাখতে পারে একটা সভ্যতা ও সমাজ বিকাশের প্রশ্নে। আজকে আমরা এখানে যে দাওয়াত পেয়েছি, আমরা নিজেরা এসেছি, জেভিটিভি এখানে এসছে, একমাত্র টেলিভিশন চ্যানেল এটা পুরো এশিয়ানদের তরফ থেকে। এই চ্যানেল আজকে এই নিউ ইয়র্কে যতদিনই হোক তার প্রতিষ্ঠায়, আজকে এটা আমরা সবাই গর্বিত যারা জেভিটিভির সাথে যুক্ত। জেভিটিভি হচ্ছে জয় বাংলাদেশ টেলিভিশন, এইটি তার শুরুতেই যেন একটা বিশাল নেতৃত্বের সম্ভাবনা নিয়ে পদক্ষেপ করলো, সামনে অগ্রসর হলো এবং আমেরিকার সবচাইতে বড় দুই নেতা নেত্রী, এটা শুধু ব্যক্তি নয়, দুটি প্রতিষ্ঠানকে নিয়েই তার আজকে যে ধারণ কাজটা করলো। সেই জন্য আমি জেভিটিভির সব ক্রুদের, আমি সব স্টাফদের যারা এর সাথে যুক্ত, সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি। পাশাপাশি আমাদেরকে দাওয়াত দেওয়ার জন্য আমাদের সব কাউন্সিলম্যানদের, এই জ্যাকসনাই, স্টোরিয়া, এই এলাকায় আমাদের যে কাউন্সিলম্যান আজকে একত্র হয়েছেন, যাদের আয়োজনে আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানটি, তাদের কাছে আমরা কৃতজ্ঞতা জানাচ্ছি। পলিটিক্যাল লিডারশিপ, বিজনেস লিডারশিপ, এই দুটি যে আমাদের সমাজ ও সভ্যতা অগ্রগতির জন্য জরুরি, এটিও একটি প্রমাণ হলো, কারণ এরা না হলে আজকে অনুষ্ঠানটি হতো না। ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে।
My name is Saeed Hassan. I'm originally from Pakistan. I came to this country almost 35 years ago, and what I've learned something over the period that all the communities of South Asia have to work together for a common goal, which we wanted to raise our families here, educate our children, and this message we can take back to wherever we came from, whether it's Bangladesh or Pakistan or India, because these three people are so important in this country right now, especially the New York area, that we are contributing in the development of this city. But we're also developing ourselves, and then in return we're also developing the country we love back, which is our homeland, which is Bangladesh or Pakistan or India. And the understanding between these three communities here are so important that we need to forget the past, the bad thing, and think about the good thing that we can all achieve working together. Right. So I think that is the message. So here, definitely, I look forward to working with all my Bangladeshi brothers and sisters. Currently, I'm working with New York State Senator Steve Broad as his Director, Interfaith Outreach. And the reason I'm doing it because diversity, equity, and inclusion is so important right now. Then we need to work. We want people to recognize us, whether we are whatever background we are. But even if you're as a Muslim, or if you're a Hindu, or if you're a Christian, it doesn't matter. What matters most is, are we secure? Are we working together? Are we making best use of the resources in this country for ourselves, for our family, for our neighborhoods?
তো বন্ধুরা, আজকের মতো এখান থেকে বিদায় নিচ্ছি। দেখা হবে সবাই আবার অন্য কোনো ভিডিওতে। ভালো থাকবেন সবাই। আল্লাহ।